Today I am doing a quick comparison test between the Mavic Mini and the DJI Mini 2. I've had my Mavic Mini for a little over 6 months and I've loved every second with it, and I was immediately blown away by how easy it was to fly and how great the video looked. Recently I upgraded to the Mini 2, but why did I upgrade? Well, my main reasons for upgrading was to get the 4K video, to get the better range from the controller, to get the raw photo capabilities, and as an added bonus I think the engine noise is less noticeable from the Mini 2. So after trying both of them, how big are the differences? I know a lot of you appreciate the drone aspects of my photography, so in case anyone else is considering upgrading or otherwise interested in seeing the differences between the two drones, how they compare in image quality, how much difference does 4K versus 2.7K make, do you really need the raw capabilities of the Mini 2, is there a difference in the sound, in the noise? So I thought I would just make a few quick comparison shots for you. So before we get flying, let's just take a look at what's in the box for the two models. Both are the Fly More package, which I highly recommend. You really do need the 3 batteries because you always run out of at least one, and buying separate batteries costs as much as the Fly More package or even more, and then you don't get the rest of the accessories with it. The whole point of the Mini and the Mini 2 is to be below 250 grams to avoid harder regulations in most countries. But what do they actually weigh? The lower weight of the Mini 2 makes it possible to add filters without going over 249 grams. The Mavic Mini Fly More combo has a very nice hard case with room for the drone itself, the controller, the charging hub and all 3 batteries, as well as cables, spare props and a mini screwdriver for changing the props. What I don't like is that there is no way of securing the propellers other than placing the drone in the case, so there is no propeller holder and there is also no room for the charger itself within the bag. The Mini 2 Fly More, on the other hand, has a soft black carrying case or bag with a shoulder strap. The strap makes it a bit more practical to bring the drone with you, and like with the Mini 1, you have room for all the accessories. One advantage with this bag is that you could also fit a charger or even a power bank for charging on the go. The Mini 1 controller needs some assembly each time, which I will show more of later. I'm not a fan of this as it takes more time before getting started to be able to fly. The Mini 2 controller also requires you to mount the sticks, but the cable is left in place, which is a lot more convenient. I also like that the sticks are stored within the remote itself. When comparing size, the Mini 1 controller is considerably smaller, which is a plus for me. It's also lighter than the controller for the Mini 2. When it comes to packing and bringing your drone, the Mini 2 has a nice propeller cover that holds the propellers in place. This makes it easier to pack in other than the provided case. The Mini 1 I wouldn't pack that way because it would damage the propeller, so then I would have to buy a propeller cover first. If you want to pack the entire kit in your backpack, the Mini 1 case is smaller, and since it's harder, it probably protects the drone better. I really like to be able to just throw it in my car and go. And it also works as a start on landing pad if you don't have a separate one with you. The Mini 1 hard case fits nicely in the outer pocket of my backpack. You can see my separate review of the backpack. The Mini 2 soft case also fits, but it's not as good a fit as the Mini 1 case. I actually prefer using my camera backpack for transporting the Mini 2, not using its soft case. I almost always use my camera at the same time as using my drone, so I will need the backpack anyway. So this is the way I prefer transporting it, and it feels like it's pretty well protected here as well. I'm just walking a bit to get away from the noise from the traffic. So today there won't be any spectacular scenery with gorgeous light or anything like that. It's just a rather clear, cold winter day. Harsh light, partly cloudy, so it might not be all that high contrast. So I thought we would start here. I think we'll start with the DJI Mini, or the Mavic Mini I should say. I haven't used the Mini in a while since I upgraded. So this is what I was talking about earlier regarding the assembly of the controller for the Mini 1. It's just more work, and especially if your fingers are cold or if you're in a bit of a hurry, I find it annoying. I think the remote for the Mini 2 is a lot better. This one is takes a bit of time to set it up and get it put together with the cable and everything like that. So there we go. The Mini 2, as I've shown you, its remote has all its necessary things within itself. It's got these control sticks in their own small compartments, and then the cable for the phone is secured like this. So I really like that solution. The remote is a bit bigger when you have to stow it away, but I like that it has the screen on top like this instead of underneath the remote. For me that's a better solution. Okay, we need new battery for this one as well. I thought I'd start with some sound checks from a distance of about 2 meters so we can compare. I thought I would use a height of 30 meters, I think will be quite enough. And I will use this building here. I have the exact same settings for both drones here, but there is a slight variation in how they render the colors. The timeline for this video is 30 frames per second, so this is just to compare the resolution at the max frame rate of each drone. As you can see here, when the ISO goes up, the higher resolution of the Mini 2 really doesn't give you a lot of extra detail, since it's lost in the noise and the noise reduction of the video. At least in the darker parts. For bright parts there is still a bit more detail. I decided to push it even more, setting the ISO at 1600. To simulate the darkness I had to increase the shutter speed since I didn't have any ND filters to use. Unfortunately I didn't manage to match the speed of the two drones, so it's not a fully fair comparison, but hopefully you get an idea anyway of the differences. And as you can see when zoomed in, there really isn't a significant difference in the detail from the two drones at this high ISO. When comparing JPEG straight out of the camera and a processed RAW, what is obvious is that the JPEGs are sharpened and have noise that will be harder to reduce than for the RAW file, since it's baked into the JPEG and the sharpness applied also to the noise. You see here the softer tones in the sky, which is an advantage when you want to create the final result to your own taste. Maybe you want to apply contrast curves, something like that. As you can see, the JPEG on the left here has a lot more noise than the processed RAW. I tried to use just a little amount of noise reduction on the RAW file. I didn't go all out, so it can be even smoother, and you can apply also more sharpness to the RAW file without it looking strange. Now to the comparison of high ISO JPEGs from the Mini 1 versus processed RAW files from the Mini 2, and this is when the RAW format really has an advantage. This ISO 800 JPEG from the Mini 1, it looks okay, but the sky is blown out, so to save it I had to underexpose and bring the shadows up. The processed version looks okay, but I found the colors a bit hard to get right. You get a color cast almost immediately when you try to bring the shadows up. Now compare this to the processed 800 ISO RAW file from the Mini 2, and even without zooming in, the tones look more natural. And when we do zoom in, that's when you really see the difference. Look at the details here on the trees against the brighter background. You can see the Mini 2 has a lot more detail left, and when you look at the noise in the shadows, the Mini 1 looks a lot more muddy, and the noise looks worse in my opinion. And down here in the corner, it's even more obvious how much worse the processed JPEG looks. At ISO 1600, the Mini 1 still looks half decent when not zooming in, even if the Mini 2 looks better. But already at the first zoom levels here, you can see the JPEG totally falling apart in the shadows. And the built-in noise reduction has taken away almost all of the detail in the darker parts. Zooming in further here shows the JPEG being a total mess, and the RAW, well, it's quite usable for prints, at least in my opinion. Now at ISO 100, the difference is not at all as bad as for the higher ISO. This was shot as RAW plus JPEG on the Mini 2. I thought I would try to recover the blown out sky, so this is what I managed on the JPEG. A fair amount of detail recovered, but heavy magenta color cast because probably the green channel was clipped in the overexposed parts. However, the difference from the RAW here is not that huge. Smoother gradients and less color cast, plus a little more detail in the sky from the RAW file. So from this example image, the JPEG would be totally okay to use. However, there are situations when the difference is a lot bigger, especially if the ISO goes up. So maybe you're considering a used Mavic Mini as your first drone, or maybe you already have a Mini 1 and consider upgrading to the Mini 2. Only you can decide if it's worth the extra money for the Mini 2 based on your own needs and demands. However, one thing I do know is that no matter which one of these drones you end up getting, you can produce some really great results. So here's a collection of some clips and photos I took with the Mini 1 and the Mini 2, and I hope to see you next time. See you then!